First, let's take a look at how the markets performed this week. First to Europe. European markets clocked their best week since November as investors digest US jobs report as at Friday, January the 6th. Euro Stoxx 600 closed on 443.22. It was up by 0.89%. London FTSE All-Share Index closed at 7,692.44 and it was up by 0.69%. The markets in Germany saw the DAX close at 14,534.74, also up by 0.68%, while the CAC 40 in Paris ended the week at 6,828.45, gaining at 0.98%. And finally, the IBEX 35 in Spain ended at 8,681.9, gaining by 0.84%. To the Nigerian stock markets now. At the end of the last weekday of trading on the NSE, a total of 195.73 million shares in 3,650 deals, corresponding to a market value of 7.44 billion were traded. The current market capitalization of the NSE is 27.89 trillion naira. Now let's take a look at Wall Street as at Friday, January the 6th. Now for some top business stories that made headlines this week. A third of the world's economies could be heading for a recession in 2023. IMF head Kristalina Georgieva has warned that the next 12 months will be tougher on a global scale as the US, EU and China are all showing signs of slowing simultaneously. In October 2022, the IMF cut its 2023 outlook for global economic growth, which cited the continuing drag from the war in Ukraine, inflation pressures, and interest rate rises by major central banks. In China, the rapid spread of COVID-19 after the government dropped its severe containment policy means that the country faces a fresh economic blow in the short term. The negative impact on Chinese growth, which could be the lowest in 40 years, will not only impact on the region, but globally as well. The IMF chief, however, said that the US may avoid recession if the labor market continues to remain strong. US tech giant Meta is preparing to announce its decision on whether it would allow Donald Trump back onto Facebook and Instagram. If you recall, Trump was suspended from Meta's platforms for inciting violence after a group of his supporters stormed the US Capitol in January 2021. The $300 billion company had previously set the date for January 7 this year, but that decision is now expected to be announced later in the month, according to an inside source. Regardless of the decision, however, the outcome will be decisive. The former UK Deputy Prime Minister Nick Clegg is to oversee the decision after he took on an expanded role in February, leading the company on policy matters. Although he declined to comment in October, he did state at a conference held by the Council for Foreign Relations that any private company, regardless of one's personal views about Donald Trump, should tread with thoughtfulness when seeking to silence political voices. This is set to be probably one of the most polarizing moderation decisions that the US tech giant has made to date. Despite the economic challenges faced by Nigeria in 2022, the stock market arm of the Nigeria Exchange Group remained resilient as it gained 5.62 trillion naira in the past year. In terms of value, the overall market capitalization increased to 27.915 trillion naira in 2022, representing an increase by 25.2% from the 22.29 trillion naira it closed at in 2021. The NSE contended with factors such as foreign investors' exits and aggressive hikes in the monetary policy rate, amongst others. Although the NGX All-Share Index, an index that tracks the general market movement of all listed stocks on the exchange, including those listed on the Growth Board, and regardless capitalization, rose by 19.98% or 8,534 basis points to 51,251 basis points in 2022, from the 42,000 basis points it closed at in 2021. Electric car maker Tesla delivered record 1.3 million in vehicles in 2022, 40% more than in 2021, but missing forecast on sales. Tesla, the electric car maker led by billionaire Elon Musk, reportedly deliver these vehicles 40% higher than the previous year's record, but has fallen short of Wall Street sales forecast for the final months of 2022. Following the update, the company's shares sank by over 12%, which wiped more than $50 billion off Tesla's market value. In a statement to investors, Tesla said it had to deal with significant COVID and supply chain related challenges throughout the year. Back in October, Musk dismissed the idea that demand was hurting, but the shortfall is unusual for Tesla, as it had previously managed to deliver about as many vehicles as it produced. The company is scheduled to announce financial results for 2022 on January 25. Now, in Singapore, the Ministry of Trade and Industry had previously forecasted a 3.5% growth rate, but a recent report shared on Tuesday showed that the economy grew by 3.8% in 2022. However, there is growing concern as slow activity in the fourth quarter points to significant risks ahead for the city-state in the new year as global demand weakens and inflationary pressures weigh in. Singapore Prime Minister Lee Hsien Loong said in his New Year message last Saturday that the international outlook remains troubled, which will affect the city-state's economy. In the meantime, the country's sales taxes has been raised to 8% from 7% since the start of the year in a bid to raise revenue and fund the increasing healthcare expenditure of an aging population. The government expects growth of between 0.5 to 2.5% this year. The case of Bankman-Fried continues to unravel as the founder of collapsed FTX cryptocurrency exchange pled not guilty to criminal charges that he cheated investors and caused billions of dollars worth of losses. He entered his plea in a Manhattan federal court where he faces 8 criminal counts, including wire fraud and money laundering conspiracy. The 30-year-old ex-mogul is accused of looting FTX customers' deposits to support his Alameda Research hedge fund, buy real estate and donate millions of dollars to political causes. The trial date has been set for October 2 by U.S. District Judge Lewis Kaplan, while Bankman-Fried could be facing a 115-year jail sentence. Wall Street's main indexes started the year with a dip, with the biggest drags from Tesla and Apple. Tesla shares closed down at 12%, hitting their lowest level since August 2020, while Apple Inc. shares sank by 3.7%, hitting its lowest level since June 2021. The energy sector, which logged huge gains in 2022, closed down by 3.6% in the year's first trading day, as oil prices fell on bleak business activity data from China and concerns about the global economic outlook. In the UK, the British Retail Consortium said on Wednesday that annual growth of UK food prices hit 13.3% in December. That was up from 12.4% in November and the highest reading since the trade body's records began in 2005. Overall shop price inflation edged down to 7.3% in December from a record 7.4% the previous month. The figures suggest that households will continue to feel a sharp squeeze even as overall inflation levels expected to ease this year from multi-decade highs reached in 2022. They also suggest that the 16.6% of food inflation, which is a 45-year high reported by the Office for National Statistics for November, might accelerate when the body publishes December figures later this month. Following an uptick in unionization efforts in the US, workers at Microsoft's ZeniMax Studios have voted to form the tech giant's first labor union in the US. The Communications Workers of American Union and Microsoft have agreed to recognize the group. The group will represent roughly 300 quality assurance workers at offices in Maryland and Texas. CWA President Chris Shelton expressed that this move would help to strengthen Microsoft's corporate culture and ability to serve its customers and should serve as a model for the industry and as a blueprint for regulators. ZeniMax Studios is the first studio in Microsoft US to secure union representation and will boast the largest group of union-represented quality assurance testers at any game studio in the US. Nigeria's President Muhammadu Buhari signs a 21.83 trillion 2023 budget, but defers the finance bill over potential conflicts with the PIA. The president signed the budget, the 2000 appropriation bill, into law, marking the last time he'll be performing this task as Nigeria's president. The president, however, deferred the signing of the finance bill, which has still been reviewed, especially over the purported conflicts with the fiscal terms of the Petroleum Industry Act. Buhari also signed the 2022 Supplementary Appropriation Bill during the ceremony at the Council Chambers at the State House, Abuja. He explained that the 2022 Supplementary Appropriation Act would enable the administration to respond to the havoc caused by the recent nationwide floods, which took a heavy toll on infrastructure and agriculture. Buhari said adequate provisions had been made in the budget for the successful conduct of the forthcoming general election and the transition program. Ghana is poised to request debt relief with the G20 Common Framework Program and has sought reassurances that the negotiations can be expedited before proceeding. According to close sources, Ghana, which secured a $3 billion staff-level agreement with the IMF in November, has been hesitating due to the long delays faced by other countries using the process, one source familiar with the government's thinking said. In December, Ghana launched a domestic debt exchange and later said it would default on nearly all of its $28.4 billion worth of external debts. The UK government on Thursday announced new anti-strike legislation that would ensure minimum levels of service in 8 sectors, including the NHS, following widespread industrial action across the country. The Trade Union Congress warned unions would fight every step of the way to block the government's legislation, which aims to ensure public services function adequately during strike action. Prime Minister Rishi Sunak is contending with strikes in multiple industries involving nurses, postal staff, and train drivers as workers demand higher pay amid the cost of living crisis. The bill would impose minimum safety levels on multiple sectors, ambulance and fire and rail services. The government stated that while it will protect the ability to strike, it must be balanced with the public's right to life and livelihood. And finally, on Friday, Samsung reported that its quarterly profits had fallen by 2/3 to an 8-year low due to a weakening economy, hammering memory chip prices and stunted demand for electronic devices. Samsung's profits are expected to shrink again in the current quarter, analysts said, after the South Korean company announced its October to November operating profit is likely to fall 69% to 4.3 trillion won from 13.87 trillion won a year earlier. Rising global interest rates and cost of living have dampened demand for smartphones and other devices that Samsung makes, and also for the semiconductors it supplies to rivals such as Apple Inc. The disappointing profit estimate sets a weak tone for other tech firms' quarterly results. And that's it for the market roundup and top business stories this week.